Hey, welcome back to The Irrational, the podcast where we discuss pieces of media and the fears that they've instilled in us. Thank you so much for joining me yet again in my cabin deep in the woods of Chicago, Illinois. I'm still missing all my doors and windows. I keep calling, trying to get in touch with my landlord, and his wife keeps saying, he's dead, I told you he died 20 years ago, stop calling. But like I said, who's cashing my rent checks, right? I've had landlords try to avoid me in the past, but you know, this is their responsibility. They got to take care of these things. I mean, I hung up a bunch of tarps because there's, as you can probably tell, a huge storm tonight, so that'll get me by. But I don't know. He's got to step up to the plate and take care of this responsibility. I also tried to clean up all those candles that he left. They're everywhere. And I noticed as I was cleaning them up, there's like people painted a bunch of stars with circles around them on my floor. What is that? Why would you do that? I like these hardwood floors. Whatever, I'll get it taken care of. I'm pretty tenacious. I know my renter's rights. So anyways, this week's guest is my very good friend, Nicky Martin. He is absolutely wonderful. He is America's hottest millennial. I was so excited to have him on. You're in for a treat when you're in a conversation with Nicky. We discuss Philip K. Dick movies and novels, and we spoil a whole lot of them. So just a heads up on that. Nicky insists that they're still worth reading, even if you know the twists and turns. But just wanted to warn you that there might be spoilers ahead. And we also discuss the fear of going crazy and having no idea that you're crazy or doubting your sanity. There's a lot of layers to this. It kind of fucked me up, so just wanted to apologize in advance if it fucks you up too. Like usual, we plug everything at the end of the episode. So, without further ado, Nicky Martin. I knew you, like the first, 2 or 3 years I knew you as Nick.
Yeah.
And then you changed your Facebook name, I'm assuming, in reference to Ricky Martin. No, it's not. I thought it was just. I thought it was a Nicky Martin, Ricky Martin.
Funny coincidence, joke. But all my friends and family have called me Nicky.
Yeah.
Literally my whole life.
Yeah.
None of them have ever called me Nick. And comedy people call you what you tell them to call you, which is very unusual in circles that I had been in before. And then I just realized there's a ton of Nicks.
Yeah.
And there's like no Nickies.
Yeah.
And it's only happened once, but I love it when people think they booked a woman. And then I show up, and I'm like, yo,
Nicky
what
Martin?
up? Yeah. They're like, oh, I thought this would be a girl. And I was like, yeah, no, you're sadly mistaken, friend.
That's wait, who's booking based on name alone?
It was actually someone else booked it, and then another person was hosting.
Oh,
and then the host was
gotcha.
like, oh, I was looking for a woman this whole time. And
Okay,
I was like,
that makes more sense.
No, friend.
Because I was like, is someone just like looking up, and they're like, oh, this Nicky Martin is why Nicky as a woman? I don't think I've ever met.
I think if you were a woman and you spelled your name Nicky, you'd be like either Nikki or Nicki.
I guess I have known a Nicky. Yeah, I've known a couple Nickies. I don't know why I just said that. But I guess because in my head I'm seeing it with the Y, and I've never known a Nicky with a Y.
No, I haven't either.
Yeah.
I think that whenever I see Nicky with a Y, it's like a gangster, like an old-timey.
Yeah.
I'm Nicky the gangster.
Yeah, like a Tommy or something like that.
Yeah, give me some big barrels of bootleg whiskey.
So why did you start with Nick? You just decided to change things up in your life?
That was what I always told people my name was. But
everyone
never
just went to Nicky right away.
They just never respected my wishes.
Gotcha.
So then I was like, all right, I'll just do what they say. And I like it better. I think it's funnier. And it also, like, Nick Martin is 3 syllables, but the other one's 4.
Yeah.
Which is kind of fun.
Yeah, I like it. It's funny because like you said about comedians tell you whatever, or call you whatever you tell them to call you. I had known Peter John Burns for like 3 years, and I messaged him calling him Peter John, and he answered all my questions, and at the end he said, and for Christ's sakes, call me Pete Charlie. And I was like, in my head, like, it's crazy that I didn't call you Peter John Burns, because like it's just in comedy you know everybody by their full name.
Yeah, for
it's
sure.
very weird. Like in conversation, I wouldn't say like, oh, like Nicky came over today. I'd say Nicky Martin.
Yeah.
That
was another thing. People would always call me first name, last name.
Yeah.
Like never just Nick.
Yeah. But, it's got a good flow to it, the full name.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's good.
And my parents would be pleased. Do you think so?
Awesome. Well, so we've got Nikki Martin. I'm glad I hashed that out because I've been wondering about it for like, I don't know, 6 months. I don't know. The audience probably doesn't give a fuck, but I don't know. They're forced to listen to this. No, they're not. So Nikki, you are a comedian in Chicago.
Very true.
You're a great guy. I love you very much. Super funny. I'm excited to have you on.
I'm excited to be on.
You wanted to talk about kind of the movie Scanner Darkly is like your main movie, but it goes into like the fear goes into other places. But let's talk about Scanner Darkly real quick. It came out 2006? I think
I feel like it's 8, but it might not be.
I wrote down 2006, but I might be wrong.
You're probably right. You're probably right because if you wrote it down, no, you're totally right because I saw it in high school and I remember seeing it in theaters and I liked it a lot.
Gotcha.
I'll tell you what the fear is the thought of going crazy, but not believing you're going crazy. Or maybe even the world telling you you're going crazy and you're like, no, I'm not. I'm definitely not crazy about this.
Yeah. Having full confidence that you are in like a lucid state of mind and everyone else is like, no, you need to stop. Like you're being crazy.
You're going insane.
It is. I mean, and when you watch this movie, you really do get a feel for that. Like the movie itself makes you feel fucking crazy for one. It's so complicated and all over the place. I haven't seen it since like 2006 or 7, but I remember thinking about it for like a week afterwards because it's just so, it's also like, I don't know, like there's like the government is telling him all these things and that's where you really lose control. Is like, is it just me or is the government trying to make me feel this way?
The official narrative prescribed upon you by the government institutions.
Yeah. And you're pretty big into conspiracy theory.
Sure. Or perhaps alternative history that is true and not a theory at all.
Sure. That's I've never been corrected on that term before, but that's fair.
It depends on the one. But I will say maybe it wasn't the first, but it's one of the first books. I like the movie a lot.
Yeah.
I think the movie dampens the ending.
Okay.
Of the book, where the book is at the end, and sorry if you haven't already, take your headphones off for a second. But
yeah. I mean,
or really don't. Just
10
who
years
cares?
old.
It doesn't matter about the ending.
I spoil like whatever comes up in this.
Yeah.
Like feel free to spoil.
Good. I'm gonna spoil all the Philip K. Dick books, and I promise you the prose is worth it. Just read them anyway.
Yeah.
The end is that the government manufactures drugs to sell to the citizens, and they get the citizens addicted to drugs,
right?
Because that is a good way to make money,
right?
And that is true.
Yes,
that has been documented in fact. And Philip K. Dick sort of saw through all that conspiracy, I guess, and it is conspiring to get people sick in the late 60s, early 70s, which is before we had all the official documents proving that the CIA is going into South American countries and co-opting poppy farms and pushing drugs throughout the world and making money and using that money to then instill puppet dictators and stuff like that.
Right.
And that, when you realize an idea of that magnitude and try to convince the world of something that nefarious, it does seem crazy.
Sure.
But at the same time, I think the heart of the fear in Scanner Darkly is the drugs themselves might be making you realize that the drugs are bad, but maybe it's because they're just bad for you. And it gets so twisted. I think that this fear is so perfectly realized in Scanner Darkly. And of all the Philip K. Dick books I've read, it is the best one.
Oh, Scanner Darkly is the best book?
I think so. It's also his most personal novel.
Yeah.
You could tell he really had a lot of friends that died from drug addiction.
And
it's almost like a tribute to them.
Oh, I see. I haven't. I've not read any Philip K. Dick books. I want to though, just based on like sitting down and looking at the Wikipedia for this because I didn't have time to like rewatch the movie. So like I was reading the Wikipedia and I was like, I gotta fucking read this book. It looks amazing.
It's great.
Yeah, and it's apparently based on his actual drug experiences.
Oh, totally.
Like he like just knows what he's writing about, and that's why it feels so real when you're watching the movie.
So there's a few periods of Philip K. Dick. Philip K. Dick never went to college, and he quickly became a sci-fi writer as his primary source of income. And at one point, he was so poor, he became a methamphetamine addict in order to fuel the novels he's writing.
Wow.
And there's a 3-year period where he wrote like 14 books.
Yeah.
Not to mention all the short stories he's writing. They were paying him very badly. So he was just finishing them to get them done.
Yeah.
But in some ways, that drug-addled mind, like, helped him get through to the other side and to really be prescient in the way that, like, only Confucius has been.
Right.
And at the end of his career, the books are not as drug-addled, but they're all about the Messiah and seeing to the next great beyond. And then they recently I say, but probably like 4 or 5 years now, released The Exodus of Philip K. Dick, and it's honestly like a Bible. It reads just like a Bible. It's incomprehensible. They edited it down, but it's still like 1,000 pages, and it's just a bulk of text that seems very confusing and weird, but I guarantee in 100 years, people are going to be like, oh, he predicted when they put the robots in our brains.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. That sounds crazy. And that's interesting because it is like, I mean, not to promote drugs in any way, but like drugs do open you up to different, it's just, it can instantly change the way you think about things. And then sure, maybe it'll wear off and then you go right back to thinking about things the same way. But it sounds like with him, I mean, it's a dangerous thing to do, especially with fucking meth, but it sounds like with him, he did that and it really opened up his mind. And then afterwards, his mind stayed open.
Yeah.
Like even after he was like off because like what you said, they were less drug addled. Did he quit or is it
Kinda.
He just eased back?
He did drugs more or less his whole life, but less at the end.
Yeah.
For all intents and purposes, defining sanity, we wouldn't define Philip K. Dick as sane at the end of his life.
Yeah.
After that meth binge, he kind of went off his rocker. But it's almost like his stories came true.
Yeah.
Like he was like, no, look, there's a bunch of gods sending radio waves throughout space.
Yeah.
And then it's like, oh, you're crazy, man. You don't know what you're talking about. But then again, all the characters in his books were right. So maybe he was right.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, that's a risky, it's a risky move. I mean, it sounds like he kind of sacrificed his own sanity, but he made a lot of very important works.
That's an awesome point. He's like a martyr of sanity. Like, if he didn't go crazy, then we wouldn't have all these, which I feel like now his books are literally coming true to the T.
Yeah.
Especially in light of, and then content warning, we're going to talk a little bit about the tragic shootings in Orlando. But in light of that, there was a book he wrote called Flow My Tears, The Policeman Said. And it's about more or less the whole terror watch list argument.
Yeah.
Like right when your name gets on a list in this book, you can't buy anything. You're hunted down by the police. You're going to get thrown in jail without a trial, and you're probably going to be executed. And it seems like the whole idea of this terror watch list where, oh, we shouldn't sell guns to people on a terror watch list, certainly a noble cause, but how do you get on that list?
Yeah.
And how do you get off it is the even scarier part.
Yeah.
The character of that book, I can't remember his name, but he gets on the list. And the rest of the book is he just becomes immediately, he was a businessman and then immediately becomes a homeless person. And he needs to get through these checkpoints that are impossible to navigate because you need to have a key card. And it seems like our phones are exactly that. You know, I mean, if the government or some other nefarious organization says Charlie is a terrorist, they'll know where you are. They'll know who you are. And then even if they're wrong, maybe they meant a different Charlie.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter anymore.
Yeah. And I mean, like, just the idea of like, way back when you could just say, you could call the police and say like, hey, my neighbor's a communist, and their life falls apart from that. And there's like not really any research done into that. They're just on this list. That's a terrifying, like whenever reading about that always scared the shit out of me, because I was like, your life could just end because your neighbor didn't like you or was an idiot and like made a mistake. That's horrifying.
Totally. I think
everything could just change.
That probably influenced Dick. And I think he was even on those lists. He translated the works of Stanislaw Lem, who is I think it's Czechoslovakian, but maybe he's Polish. I don't know. He's a Eastern European writer, he translated Dick's works, but Dick wanted nothing to do with him because he didn't want to be thought as a communist sympathizer.
Oh, wow. Yeah,
so, I mean, he was very paranoid about that, but if you read his books, he definitely was a very far leftist, and I could see why he'd be scared about that because he didn't want, his only source of income to be taken away like so many people had with McCarthyism and stuff like that. It's so sad, but then is that not exactly what we're doing with Islamo-terrorism, which is like just made up, totally
it's like a new target every, 15 years maybe?
Yeah.
It's just a different target to like place blame, call the enemy. Man, scary shit.
Yeah, exactly. And that's another thing where it's like, you get put on one of those lists and you say you don't belong on it, you're not crazy.
Yeah.
But they'll say you are.
Yeah.
You know, the way institutional powers use the definition of sanity is in their favor. It's never in the favor of all the people in the world. It's in the favor of the people who could lose their massive quantities of wealth and guns and
and you can't. There's no way to really like trust, because like I remember when I was a kid and people would talk about like, oh, the news lies to you, the media lies to you. I was like, shut up, like you're being dramatic. This isn't a movie and stuff. But then it's like nowadays it's just so blatant and obvious. Even as something as simple as the news will talk about how amazing a presidential candidate's doing, but then you see pictures from the rally and there's like 30 people crowding the stage and 0 people in the giant auditorium. And then they'll say this candidate's dying. And then you see like jam-packed stadiums. Just something as simple as that. It's like, oh yeah, I certainly can't trust you. Because what else, if you're lying to me about something like that's that easily provable, because we have fucking Twitter and cameras on our phones, what else are you lying about?
Yeah.
Like what precautions, like, because that's no precautions at all with that lie. Anyone could, they just know that their dedicated viewers aren't going to go on Twitter and find those images. So they're just keeping those people complacent.
Totally. I think it's ironic that the powers that be thought they would have much better surveillance of us because they have a camera they can access whenever they want on our little phones.
Yeah.
But now we're being able to surveil them.
Yeah,
We're like,
exactly.
actually, look, there's 50,000 people at the Bernie Sanders rally, and none of them were hired to be here.
Yeah, exactly.
Like,
Bernie
so
doesn't have that
that's
kind
kind
of
of
money.
cool. That's actually something that Philip K. Dick didn't see. His very, I mean, when you talk about dystopic literature, almost all of his books fulfill that requirement, but he didn't really see the potential in everybody having a camera on them.
You never see, you see like small rebel groups in dystopian like movies and books and shit, but you never see like just general people out in society fighting back in ways that are like free speech and shit. Like, because I mean, I like the old saying is like history is written by the victor. That's changing because now the losers have a voice, you know? So like you walk on people, they can still stand up and be like, okay, well, here's like thousands of people writing the same thing on the internet. There's got to be some sort of substance to that. Like it's harder to sweep these people under the rug nowadays.
I use loser in quotes, but like
right, loser in quotes.
Persecuted people will also maintain their histories a lot more thoroughly than the established powers care to. And also, like in year 1984, where the people who are in power keep changing the narrative that is history because they keep changing who's in power. You wouldn't see that so much with one group that's been persecuted forever. Like the Kurds in the Middle East certainly know their history better than other Middle Eastern countries that have had regime change after regime change after regime change.
Right. Because you lose all that, every change, you lose all the information.
Yeah.
And that's one nice thing about the internet is like you can't burn the internet down. Like you can't burn all their books, or like they'll burn all their books, but it's like nowadays it's like this shit's on the internet. It's in, you know, the cloud or whatever.
Yeah. I mean, maybe the cloud could collapse, but
could be.
At
Who
the
knows?
same time, it seems like there's enough people who know how to run their own private servers that'll have data on them.
Yeah. I also feel like by the time, at least talking America, but when the cloud collapses, I feel like worrying about history will be the last of everyone, you know, because like if the cloud's collapsing, what does that mean? Like how much technology is, and we rely on technology so much. I feel like that's like almost an apocalyptic scenario, just us losing technology.
Yeah, totally. One of my favorite things I read this year was about exactly this. It was called Private Eye by Brian K. Vaughan.
Okay.
Marcos something is the artist.
Brian K. Vaughan. He's Saga
and Why the Last Man.
Dude's awesome.
Great writer.
Is this a comic or
It is a
novel?
comic. It was a digital comic. It's also all free, so if you want to check it out, go ahead. It's free.
What was it called?
Private Eye.
Private Eye. I'm going to check that out.
And it's all about this actual private eye who is hired to find the identity of someone because after the cloud collapses, all information is made public, and millennials are screwed.
Yeah.
They lose their jobs, they lose their credibility, everybody's fucked. So the generation after the millennials, the people who are their children and grandchildren, protect privacy more than anything else.
Yeah.
Everybody wears masks and cloaks that conceal who they are, and they all have avatars.
Oh, wow. Even
and,
public identity, they've...
yeah. So like the president would be like, you know, weed rock stoner guy 4020.
Wow.
4020? What? 420. You guys know it. Hell yeah. But it's really cool. This idea of like, could we, if the cloud collapses, could we then like go reactionary the other way? We were like, I don't tell anybody anything about me.
Yeah.
Maybe.
That's an interesting concept, and that makes sense.
They totally didn't care about the history, like you said.
Yeah.
Like right when the cloud collapsed, they're like, we don't give a fuck who invented the computer, man. Don't look at our faces.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Shit, I want to read that. That sounds intense.
It's dope. It's really cool. And it's also in print, but if you get it for free online, it's actually more fun to read because of the way they use digital comics, like the way the panels pop up and move around your screen. It's really neat. Yeah.
Awesome. I'm going to check that out. So you have this fear, though? You're afraid that you're going crazy?
Mm-hmm. I've had very acute attacks of it.
Yeah.
Especially lately. I used to smoke a lot of weed.
Yeah.
And lately,
as I was going to ask you, because like at least in Scanner Darkly, a lot of his confusion. I mean, he would be confused regardless, but he's also on drugs. So I was going to ask, like, how much does drugs play into this as far as your fear goes?
What am I talking about? 3 months ago, I had this really crazy panic attack where I felt like the government was spraying my weed with chemicals to make me less creative so I couldn't see through their cloud of bullshit. Now, obviously, that's not true. That is a crazy thing to think.
Right.
But it kind of kickstarted me to not smoke anymore. And I'm trying not to with middling results, but, you know, like much less than I had for the last 6 years. And I do worry about that with drugs.
That's just also very funny because if they had access to your dealer and they were going to spray stuff on it to make you less creative, they could just put that in anything you eat or drink.
Yeah, why not just put it on
be weed?
in my Dunkin' Donuts iced coffee that I get every single day for $1?
Yeah, exactly. Man, sorry, I interrupted you just to point out that.
But there is truth in what I was thinking, even though it is delusional.
Yeah.
Which is drugs aren't good for you.
Sure.
You know, I mean, if we could live a life that had only food and water, it probably would be better for our bodies and brains. Now, sometimes drugs are necessary.
Yeah. You
know, penicillin in particular, or maybe even anti-anxiety, antidepressants, and stuff like that. Otherwise, it's hard to function in our shitty world. But
sure.
It was almost like a breakthrough brought on by craziness. And then thankfully when I wasn't high anymore, I was like, oh, that was crazy. But then again, I don't want to smoke weed anymore. And then I flushed it all down the toilet.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
It was a very symbolic sort of like, I'm done.
Yeah, I've heard a lot of people that quit things. It's like that move because you can go out and buy more easy. It's not that it's just a symbolic gesture. Just like I have to do this so I can feel like I've quit.
Yeah, exactly.
And it didn't. You said, but it's middling results.
Well, I mean, I haven't bought any since.
Okay, well that's a good step. I feel like that's huge because like, what are you talking like social situations? It's offered and then you partake.
Yes.
See, I feel like that's a huge difference. If you're buying it, you're probably smoking at home, maybe alone. Like it's really part of your life. But if you can shift it back to a social situation type of thing, you know, I feel like that's a huge improvement.
Yeah, thank you. I think you're right. And also, you're not in control of when you're going to smoke, which ironically gives you more control. Because when you are in control of when you're going to smoke, you just kind of do it like, you know, eating popcorn or something like that.
Right, it's like a habitual thing.
Yeah. You just like, I have some weed, I better smoke it. That's or at least that's how I was.
I don't drink 6 drinks alone in my home. But if I have the apartment to myself and I'm just like, I toss on a movie, I'm probably going to have a beer or two, you know? So I've been trying to not do that because even a beer or two can fuck up your sleep patterns and then your sleep patterns make you more tired. You're not thinking straight, blah, blah, blah. So I'm trying not to even have the beer or two. And the way to do that is for me to just not have it in the apartment. Because if it's in the apartment, I'm going to have that beer or two. But if it's not in the apartment, I have to somehow convince myself that it's okay for me to get dressed, walk like 10 minutes to the corner store, buy the beer, bring it back here. And when I have that thought, I'm like, no, fuck it. I don't need a beer or two tonight. And then I go to sleep soundly, you know?
Yeah. I feel the same way because the other day I had a shitty day at work, as everyone who has a job has experienced.
Yeah.
And I was like, I should just buy some weed and get high. And then I was like, well, think about that logically. You're saying I didn't like work, so I'm going to go bomb my brain with drugs.
Yeah.
That's how I'll solve it. I think drugs do cloud your sanity.
For sure.
But they cloud it in such a way to make you think the rational answer is to do more drugs.
Yeah.
And that's especially true with Scanner Darkly. where this dude, he doesn't know if he's a government agent doing drugs or a dude who does drugs, but all he knows is that drugs is the most important thing in his life.
Yeah.
And while he was right at the end, it's almost like it's a little demon that gets in your brain and tricks you into thinking that it's much more important than it is.
Yeah, exactly. Man. So you feel like the drugs, quitting it, has it helped with these panic attacks at all? Or
Yeah.
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 But do you still ever have, because like I didn't smoke, like I quit weed, I don't know how long ago, years and years and years ago, and I still have weird thoughts like that. Like, am I nuts? Am I thinking clearly? Like, is there some sort of external force that's like clouding my judgment and stuff? Like, I still think like that all the time. Not all the time, I'm sorry, but I do think like that without the assistance of drugs, is what I'm trying to say.
I haven't suffered from anxiety too much in my life, more depression. And that still is around, the depression, but not I feel like all the anxiety was brought on by getting high too much. And then maybe even that was like another part of my brain saying like, you don't need this anymore. But depression is weird in that it's also kind of like that, where you think you're seeing clearly. You're like, oh, actually, the world is shitty. And I'm the only one who sees it. All these other fools getting dressed to go to work in the morning to raise their click metrics and bullshit like that. But it's almost like, a self-serving thing in your brain where it's like, oh, so this is a way to justify your hatred of going to work or your hatred of taking initiative or control of your own life or something like that.
I am going to tell you something that might be a bummer. I think I first heard, I can't remember the exact sources. I wish I could, so I could like provide them. Maybe I'll Google it and put it in like the show notes after. I think I first heard it on a podcast, and then I like looked it up and I read about it. Studies show that depressed people have a more accurate depiction of the world because they're like cynical, so they're overthinking everything. And they are seeing things for what they are rather than just like this happy-go-lucky life that a lot of like normal thinking people have. So that's kind of a bummer to hear that you're like, no, depression is wrong. And then it's like, well, sometimes it's right. But I do think we also, as depressed people, go way overboard a lot with our cynicism and our negative thoughts.
Well, yeah, I think that too. And even narcissism. Like, I think depression sometimes for me, I don't know about everybody else's depression, but it makes me think about the world in terms of how it's affecting Nikki.
Yep.
As opposed to how the world is just weird organism that's moving all around and I don't really matter at all.
Yep.
And that could be depressing to some, but I think it's actually quite liberating because it's like, just do what you want to do.
Right, because you realize that's how I always feel. It's like none of this really matters in any grand scheme of things. So why am I so bummed about like this little thing that fucked up in my life?
Yeah.
I think about that a lot.
Now, taking it back to our overarching topic, in Philip K. Dick's books, you see people who have like, tried to think that, but they're totally wrong. Everything is related to them. It is all about them.
Yeah.
My favorite one is called The Penultimate Truth.
Okay.
And it's about this dude who, so he thinks, because he's been programmed to think for his whole life, that the world died in a nuclear explosion. Everybody's dead, and they're all living underground.
Okay.
And they live in these bunkers, and he's the head of the bunkers. He's like, I got to make sure everybody's safe and making our crops underground. We can't grow much, but we can grow some bolts that we can eat, and it'll all be okay. But inevitably, he starts to realize, actually, it isn't that. The rich people live on the top of the world. They tricked all the poor people to go live in underground bunkers and generate energy for them.
Oh my God.
The mold isn't the mold you're eating. So this dude is the most important dude in the world. Or even another one, Time Out of Joint is the craziest. It's also the uncredited basis of The Truman Show.
Oh yeah.
This dude, every day he has to fill in this crossword puzzle like thing where he gets a few numbers and he has to guess the numbers and then he wins a prize. And every single day he gets the prize right. It's crazy how he keeps doing it. Well, eventually he finds out his whole world is just a big set, like a movie set.
Yeah.
He's living in this fake suburb, and all the numbers he's been guessing are coordinates for where the nuclear missiles are going to hit. And he has this crazy prescience like only a medium could, to know where the missiles will strike. And because he's giving these numbers to the military, they're able to shoot the missiles out of the air.
Oh, so it's a defense thing.
Yep.
I thought you were saying that he like writes down these numbers, just whatever his brain feels like writing down that day, just a random like puzzle, and then just as like a fun game, they shoot missiles to those coordinates. I thought that's what you were saying.
Everything,
which is way worse, but that's still a pretty horrific situation.
Yeah, everything exactly, except they're blocking the missiles.
Right.
So like he does just write down numbers he feels, and who knows why he's right. But like,
that's a trip. I gotta fucking read these books.
Oh, they're fucking crazy. But you could tell I feel like when you take a step back and look at the man's life, he probably suffered from depression, and these depressions allowed him to see these crazy alternatives or alternate realities that are like, maybe it is all about you.
Yeah.
How would you ever know? You can't. Yeah, you can't ever escape your own perception. So maybe you're right. Maybe it is all about you.
I mean, just as something as simple as like about a week ago, for 3 or 4 days, I went through a huge slump where it's just the most depressed I'd been in a very long time. And I convinced myself I didn't have any friends. And I convinced myself that the people that are near me and love me are annoyed by me and are sticking around out of obligation. And I convinced myself that I've never really been happy and that I never will be again. And I've dealt with depression my whole life, so I have like set up like a lot of kind of fail safes, if that makes any sense, where like I have like when I go through those weird feelings, I have this logical part of my brain that'll pop in and be like, you know, you're depressed, you know, you're just going through a slump right now, you know, you've been happy, you've laughed, like unhappy people don't laugh, you're fine. So like I have that logical voice that always pops in, but this was, like I said, the worst depression I've dealt with in years, and it was like really hard for me to listen to the logical voice, because the logical voice doesn't cheer me up, it just keeps me going. Like it was like, okay, if I just push through 2 or 3 more days, I'll be good. But this time I was like, what's the fucking point of pushing through? Like I'm so fucking depressed right now. It's crazy. And that's, like you said, narcissistic, in that I was just so like, no, this is all about you. You're depressed. Nothing has ever affected you positively. That's an insane thing to think. It's also, if you ask a depressed person, are you narcissistic? They'd all say, no, I hate myself. But it's like, but you only focus on yourself. Like you're constantly hating yourself. We're all such narcissists.
Yeah, totally.
It's nuts.
Yeah. It's perceptions of reality, man.
Yeah.
And I guess there are degrees of sanity. Maybe that's why I feel so afraid that I'll lose my grip on the socially acceptable ones.
Yeah.
You know, you can perceive reality in a lot of socially acceptable ways. You can perceive it in like, oh, actually, America's a great country and we're not doing anything wrong. That's fine to believe that. If you believe that, that's A-okay.
Yeah.
But eventually there's limits to what you can actually believe and live.
Yeah.
And whether or not that's like you're saying, the depressed people see reality for what it really is, or at least clearer than someone who's not. Well, maybe that doesn't fit the objectives of the powers that be, they with a capital T.
Yeah. Because it is more, depressed people will probably see their own personal lives super inaccurately. What it is like the grand scheme of things, because they're just more cynical. And
well, people with mental illness have been treated differently throughout history.
Yeah.
And I sometimes wonder if like schizophrenics and people who are like very catatonically autistic and stuff like that, I wonder if they in the past would have been shamans or priests.
Yeah, I think about that stuff all the time.
Yeah, right? Another good.
It's like, oh, this person spoke in tongues. And it's like, nowadays, if somebody spoke in tongues, they'd be committed.
Yeah.
There would be no one would stop for a second to be like, is this person like our savior?
Yeah. Martian Time Slip is another good one. One of his best for sure. And it's about this colony on Mars. And there's a little autistic boy who can't speak. Mm-hmm. But the way he perceives reality is the way reality is. He perceives it completely correctly. Okay. So anytime he perceives something or wants it to be a way, it is that way. And there's at the end, we find one of the characters has crossed this little boy too many times, and he just ceases to exist.
Oh yeah.
So what if there is that guy? What if that guy's out there?
Because if
or something.
if the world changed, I'm sure with that great power, everyone's perception would immediately change, so they wouldn't notice the change.
Yup, exactly.
It's fucking crazy.
Yeah. Or what was that? It was like an internet thing. Oh, the Berenstain Bears.
Yeah, I never read that.
It was so.
I mean, I read the books. I never read the parallel universe
or whatever. Yeah, yeah. So it's really the Berenstain Bears.
Which that's how I've always known it.
Oh, so I guess you've always been on the right reality.
See, that's one of the reasons why I could never get around to reading it, because everyone's like, didn't everyone remember the bear? And I was like, no, Berenstain Bears. That's what I always remembered.
I always remembered as Stein.
Berenstain?
Like Frankenstein. But
spelled differently though, or is it just the way
E
people
and the I
pronounce
are
it?
swapped.
Oh,
so
yeah. I don't know.
are little blips occurring like that all the time? You know, really, if you think about it, one person's life is just a blip. And if we were like, oh yeah, Tom's dope, and the next day we're like, who the fuck is Tom?
Yeah,
that wouldn't matter that much.
Mm-hmm.
So if this dude has this perceptual power to just take out one dude from the perception of reality, it would be very cool. It'd be very amazing, but it really wouldn't affect things all that much, which is even sadder.
Yeah,
crazier.
It's weird. And then you start thinking about like butterfly effect shit.
Mm-hmm.
Like people talk about like time travel. Like the question that always comes up is, would you go back in time and kill Hitler? And it's like, it depends on like that. To answer that question, it really depends on your perception of time. Because I feel like time is, I forget which name goes with my thing, but I feel like time can't be altered. Like if you go back in time to kill Hitler, you kill Hitler. Butterfly effect, everything changes. Maybe that time machine's never invented. You're never born. How can you go back in time to kill Hitler if you're never born?
Yeah,
it doesn't make any sense. Paradox. So do we split apart, or are there just things like, let's okay, this is really weird, but I always point to this. In Harry Potter, there's this one scene where he is like about to be killed by this demon. Then he sees his dad step out from behind a tree and shoot the demon. And then he's like, oh my God, my dad's alive. And then he's like, I got to continue on with my mission. And he zips off. Then later he goes back in time, and then he's standing there waiting. He goes, this is when my dad's going to pop up, because he sees himself run up. He's like, my dad's going to pop up right now. I'm going to finally get to meet my dad. And then he realizes at the last second, that wasn't my dad, that was me. And he steps out and shoots the demon. So that's where I feel like it just loops. Like, so if you go back in time to kill Hitler, something will prevent you from killing Hitler, because you couldn't have ever gone back in time to kill Hitler if you killed Hitler.
I think that
makes
is
any sense.
One.
And that blows my like when I think about time travel and shit like that, that just my whole worldview goes out the window.
I think there's a one-track reality, whereas I believe there's a multiverse. And if you went back in time and killed Hitler, you would do it.
And it would just split into two
from
dimensions.
Your reality. Yeah. Or it already did. Like, I don't know when I read this, but whenever a choice is made, all the other possible choices are also made, creating more realities. So there's an infinite complex of realities in the multiverse. I think the best example in fiction of this is the DC comic universe. And just like from the start to the finish, they've managed to keep using big summer event comic books to like, yep, that's DC 608, and this is DC 611, and then...
Oh, yeah.
And I think that is a actually really profound discovery that fiction can make, is that like, whoa, what if there isn't just one reality? What if there's infinite realities?
Yeah.
And we're constantly moving in between them. Maybe we haven't always lived in our own reality our whole life. How would we ever know?
Yeah, did you just absorb the memories of the person that you're replacing?
Yeah.
Fuck, man.
Mm-hmm.
And this is why we feel like we're crazy.
Yeah, right?
So how do you like how do you cope with this? Do you just accept that it's beyond your control? Like, what do you...
I think that...
Or is it just enough distraction in our day-to-day lives? Because I feel like that's a lot of times when
it's a great coping strategy.
When I'm alone, then I start thinking too much, and I'm like, oh, fuck, like, everything's melting down. But if, like, I'm just living life, you rarely run into these things just out in your day-to-day, unless someone invites you to have a podcast and you're forced to talk about it for 45 minutes.
Are you crazy or not? No, the way I cope with it is that in some ways it's like, there's no control. But in other ways it's like, well, this is kind of beautiful if that's how it works. Like if I figured out something that no one else figured out, that'd be great. If I'm crazy and I need to be crazy for the reality to work the way it works, that'd be cool.
Yeah.
So yeah, I guess it is. You don't have any control, but you could still like observe it and say like, wow, isn't that complicated and amazing? I say that now until tomorrow when my phone says terrorist Nick Morton is on the loose. And then oh shit.
No, it won't be tomorrow. I'm not going to release this episode for a little while.
Okay. Well, but what if it does? If it is tomorrow though, and I'm a terrorist, will you still release it?
Oh,
if they're like,
it'd be like my best episode.
That very true. People would listen to the fuck out of it. You'd get so many listens. They'd be like, I want to hear what that guy says. I hate that about tragedies when we like are like
fetishize it.
Yeah, we're particularly fetishize a person. Like, I don't give a fuck what that crazy dude thought. He was crazy and shitty.
Yeah,
he thought dumb, horrible things. We shouldn't even say his name.
Or like when fucking Rolling Stone put the Boston Bomber on the cover of their magazine, and it was like this beautiful, glamorous picture of him. And then all these teenage girls are in love with him, and they're like, I don't care what he did. He's so cute. And it's like, what the fuck did you do, Rolling Stone? Why would you idolize a terrorist? Like,
it's sad that I can't remember what the tragedy was, but I thought the last tragedy, the media agreed they're not going to say the name of the dude over and over and over. But this one, they've said it more than any in recent memory.
Yeah, and that was such a nice, and that's cool that we can't remember. I mean, it's sad that we can't remember, but it's also cool that we can't remember because it's like, they weren't sensationalizing this person. But then, I mean, you can also get in the argument, I feel like the last time, like I feel like when they did that, it was a young white man. So maybe the media was like, we're not going to smear his name through the mud because he's a young white man. But this guy, he's brown. We're going to fucking ruin, like, who fucking knows?
Yeah.
That sucks. It would be a great habit to get into, to not share people's names and faces, though. Like,
well, because
we don't need to idolize these people.
We've had statistical proof since the 60s that the only media that affects more killings and mass shootings and murder and stuff like that is the news.
Right.
It's not fiction. It's not video games. It's not movies. It's only the newspaper. It's only TV news. Because when you see, oh, someone else did this, this is in the realm of possibility, I could do it too. Mm-hmm. And then I'll get in the news, as we all want to do.
Or it's like, just watching the news, you see these things, and the news is like warping your mind to be like, think this way, hate these people, and then you go out and do something fucking stupid because like that, like the news is affecting you in so many different ways, and then people are like, yeah, but if somebody plays a video game, they're gonna go out and shoot people, and it's like, well, that's confirmation bias just because they own video games. You know how many teenagers own video games that don't go out and shoot people?
Yeah,
man, what a fucking world.
I do think video games program you in a different way.
Yeah,
like. The fact that all the adolescent people, and even myself included, play Call of Duty, I think it desensitizes you to the idea that war is the worst. You know what I mean? Like,
sure.
Even if it doesn't make you go out and join the army, which it does for a lot of people, it makes you think like, there's no problem joining the army. But there is a huge problem. Not that I'm saying our troops are bad people. I'm just saying if none of them joined, we probably wouldn't be able to fight the wars we fight.
Yeah. I don't know.
Or
they do. I mean, they do affect. Like, I would never say that video games don't affect you in any way. I just feel like they don't. You're not going to pick up a gun and walk out into your neighborhood because
exactly
of a video
right.
game.
I don't think so either. I think it's going to be more like
it's a deep-seated mental something that you don't realize is happening, and even people that would look at every aspect of your life couldn't put together those dots because it's just. I mean, like action movies, same thing. You grow up watching like these amazing action movies, Rambo going like over to wherever and killing a bunch of. I first saw the first Rambo when I was like 23, and that's an amazing movie, and it's kind of anti-war, and it's like, it just blew my mind because I always thought Rambo was Rambo. You send him over there and he kills them all, and like inspires violence and shit. But then I saw that first movie and I was like, holy shit, this is like a deep, meaningful message. I think he kills one person by mistake in the entire movie. It's fucking crazy.
Yeah, I think he really kills all the other people in the other movies.
Oh, yeah. In the rest of the movies, his kill count is insane.
Yeah.
But it's just like, we all have this image of Rambo, which would inspire people, maybe, to inspire people to like go out and join up. But that first movie would never inspire anybody to do that. That first movie would be like, I want to stay away from that. I don't want to be a veteran that this country doesn't take care of.
Yeah. I think it's weird how there's such a firm delineation between fiction and nonfiction and what the two can cause you to do. Like fiction can, in my opinion, and this is bullshit in probably the real world, but in my opinion, fiction can influence your unconscious mind. Nonfiction can influence your conscious mind. And the fact that nonfiction can influence your conscious mind, to me, means there should be an agency that's like, don't say lies. You can't. You're not allowed.
Yeah.
You're not allowed to say someone was trained by ISIS when he was just a dude who's lived in Florida for the last 20 years.
Right, born and raised in America.
Yeah. It's like, what the fuck? That's really messed up.
Man,
but
this is a bummer one.
Yeah, this is a bummer. But if you wrote a fake book
it's
about
an important bummer. I'm not, like, complaining here.
Yeah, I think it's but like, here's a great example, too. When these things happen, it's hard not to have it occupy your thoughts.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, it's hard not to be a little more scared. Like a true culture of fear. Like in 1984, the 5 minutes? 5 minutes of hate, where you just watch a TV show every morning that just makes you scared. And then your way easier to manipulate the rest of the day.
Yeah. You are definitely more malleable when you're afraid.
Yeah, right?
Man.
It's messed up. And then to relate it back to Dick, what is the relationship between fear and sanity? You know, fear can probably drive you crazy. And I think that the fighting of fear is in some ways the proof of sanity. Like, if you don't succumb to your dark fears of like, oh, I better kill him with a rock because otherwise he'll take all my berries.
Right.
If you can move past that, you are sane, because isn't sane defined by society, and living in society is to be sane.
Fuck, man.
Yeah, dude. It's crazy.
I knew we were going to get into something deep when I invited you on.
I love getting it into deep stuff, especially about books, because then it makes me feel like I didn't waste 4 years and $100,000 when I got a degree in English literature.
Oh, English, that's your degree?
Yeah.
Dope. I mean, I wasted more years than that. Probably less money because I went to community college, and then I dropped out before graduating. So don't feel too bad.
I don't. I really don't.
Yeah,
I make jokes about it, but
as soon as I can, like, not that they give a fuck. They don't have a bill, but as soon as I can, like, pay back my parents for money they've spent on school, I will not care at all that I dropped out. Because it's just like, I mean, I know people that graduated same year as me, years before me, same boat as me, doing whatever menial job they can to get by. It's fucking baby boomers, man. Get out of here. Let us have some jobs, baby boomers.
I make minimum wage and just hope they tip me $1. You know what I mean? Fucking baby boomers are, and then often they don't. It's like, what are you doing, man? You can't just give me $1. If everybody gave me $1, I'd make a living wage. It's like, nah, we'd prefer to spend it on Starbucks.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
They're like, they have money because they keep their money. Mm-hmm. And they say, fuck you, peon.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't feel bad that my parents always wanted to buy me a college education, and they did.
Yeah.
So
mine too. Like I said, they in no way do they make me feel guilty. You
just feel guilty.
Because, like, I was told a million times, don't drop out of college. Finish college. You're going to need a degree, blah, blah, blah. I don't care. Looking back, I'm like, I made the best decision of my life going into stand-up. This is what I'm finally passionate about. I'm actually doing something with, like, gumption. I'm, making headway in this career. But there's still that tiny bit of me that's like, yeah, but your parents spent money on that. Like, you should have dropped out sooner. Does that make any sense? Like, I wish I dropped out sooner so they'd spend less money.
Yeah, it does. I don't know. I like that I'm a more compassionate person from learning. Doesn't that feel like learning's goal is to make you more, like, empathetic and...
Yeah. I mean, people complain, like, in high school, they're like, they never taught us how to do taxes. What the fuck was that even for? And it's like, they taught you how to learn. That's the important part of schooling, is it's not the things you learn necessarily. Of course, you learned a lot of important stuff, but it's the most important thing.
A lot of lies and bullshit.
You do, yeah. You learn a lot of bullshit. And I don't know. I just feel like the important thing is it taught you how to learn. It taught you how to pick up a book and comprehend knowledge. And
is particularly true with the objective things. And I hated those in school. I hated math. I hated science.
Yeah.
But it's like those were way more useful than what I learned in my humanity classes, save a few. because a lot of those humanity classes were just full of lies.
Yeah.
Just tons of lies.
Yeah.
And, you can't lie about geometry.
No, you can't.
And you have
case,
to learn it.
Worst case scenario, something's wrong and they prove it wrong later, and then everyone changes the way that book is written, but they're not lying. There's no like intent to like misinform you about how math is done.
I don't think we're ever going to disprove Euclidean geometry, I mean, like,
sure.
it's
no.
10,000, no, more than that, like 12,000 years old, which is amazing.
Yeah, exactly. I was more thinking science.
Oh, totally. Yeah, you could totally.
But they're still like, I mean, some people would argue that there is an intent to lie with science. I guess I shouldn't. I just personally don't really believe there's a real intent behind it.
I think there is for biology. I think that's how we get our understandings of like how humans should be and how gender is, when that's bullshit.
Sure. Yeah.
With chemistry, no. I mean, but then again, chemistry is so abstract. It's like, how do you even, unless you're deliberately trying to relate it to our lives, it's kind of just interesting.
Well, but still, even with the biology thing, I feel like a lot of that was kind of more of an ignorance standpoint rather than an intentional lie. Maybe nowadays it's becoming more intentional, and maybe it was always intentional.
I think it was. I think it's always because men have been the ones in charge.
The dominant,
so it's like,
yeah.
Yes, this is how we've evolved.
Yeah, it's always harder to tell who's lying and who's ignorant.
Yeah, right.
Because it's fine to be wrong. That's the fucking problem. Is people, they have their opinion, and then people are like, "You're wrong," and they don't want to be wrong so bad that they don't listen. And the moment you realize that you're wrong all the time, it's so easy to learn. You just learn all this. You just open up your mind to like fucking empathy, and I don't know.
That's always the climactic point in Philip K. Dick novels, where it's like, everything I thought was a lie, and then resolution occurs.
Oh,
like, oh, it turns out the whole world is a TV set.
That scared the shit out of me. Truman Show.
Yeah,
that ruined me for a while. Yeah. We don't need to get too deep into that. We're pretty late in the podcast already, but yeah.
Did you ever see Blade Runner?
I did. I recently saw Blade Runner. I loved it.
It's great.
I liked it a lot.
That's something that is kind of a part of the fear we've been talking about. Like, are you a robot? Or like, are you even what you think you are?
Yeah.
Maybe you're not.
You could be just some hyper advanced robot that is fully confident that he's a human.
Yeah. Or you could be like adopted and your parents had like an awesome history that was hidden from you.
Yeah.
I guess kind of like Harry Potter. Yeah.
Or you could be a computer simulation. I think Elon Musk is recently talking about.
Yeah. We could all be holograms. Yeah. This is sort of off topic, but I realized the other day that Harry Potter is fucking classist bullshit. Okay. It sucks.
It is pretty bad in a lot of ways. I mean, they have elves for slaves.
Very true. One. They have slaves, Dobby, a little slave. But Harry Potter wouldn't have had any opportunities had his parents not been A, rich, and B, more importantly, the most social capital you could possibly have.
Yes.
Even though they were rich, nobody was even going to tell Harry Potter about that unless his parents were the two that could defeat the evil Voldemort dude.
Right.
I was driving and I was like, well, imagine all the little wizards who were living in the human world that never got to see the invisible train. Yeah. Like plenty of them, probably. And the only reason that one did is because he's practically royalty.
Yeah, exactly. And even so, he still showed up in like the wizarding world and all that shit as like a pretty poor person. Yeah. Like he couldn't afford really much of anything. And then like he would get like extravagant gifts sent to him. I think about this a lot. Quidditch is a bullshit sport because if you get a better broom than other people, you're better at that sport. That doesn't make any sense. Like Ron Weasley could never be a Quidditch star because his family's poor. He can't buy the nice broom. Like you kind of can compare that to like I don't know, sports cleats and shit nowadays, but that's still your main tool in like football or something in the real world is your body. So like a poor person could potentially train up,
as they often
do. You know what I mean? As they often do. They come, rags to riches stories. But in that world, you're never gonna beat the guy with the most expensive broom if you have the cheapest broom. That doesn't make any fucking. What kind of sport is that? You just buy the best technology?
Yeah, and it also got us to fetishize these boarding school institutions that are fucking bullshit. Like all the kids who went to boarding school and Ivy League universities more power to you. But at the same time, I hope every single day they think the only reason I'm here is because I had a bunch of opportunities that other people don't have.
Yeah.
Not that I could complain either. I had practically identical opportunities, but I try to think that the
but you're
reason
aware of it.
Yeah, exactly. I think some awareness to it. Otherwise, you're going to say stupid shit like, I'm an entrepreneur, and the only reason I have success is because I took risks. It's like, well, you took risks because your dad would have paid for your apartment either way.
Right. That's like Donald Trump. It's like, yeah, it's not hard to take a risk in a business when you're handed $1 million and told, go nuts with this, have fun with it. It's like, yeah, I could probably be a billionaire too if I was given $1 million.
I can't remember which Philip K. Dick book it is, but he is in Donald Trump. Donald Trump is in it. He's a hologram man who we are all climbing up a mountain to kill with a rock. He's like, fuck, Donald Trump, man. That guy is truly a robot or part of the simulation or one of the reptoids or something like that, because he is, jeez. My parents love the guy.
Oh, really?
Yeah, love
Oh,
him.
no.
Oh, yeah.
I feel like he could also easily just be an anomaly, just like a rogue idiot that's just stumbling and bumbling into success. Like it could, I mean, if you hear stories about Hitler and how dumb and weird he was, it's like, how did he ever get to where he was at? Like when he died, he was being given like prescriptions of like meth or something to combat chronic farting, and it drove him nuts. Like, that's insane. That man was, fuck.
Donald Trump is totally Hitler. We got to,
yeah, easily.
you know, Glenn Beck got pulled off the radio, so I hope we don't get pulled off the podcast. But if somebody assassinated that guy, wouldn't that be just a clean ending to that story? It's like,
What,
geez.
Glenn Beck?
No.
Oh, Trump?
Glenn Beck is fine. Let him live. Trump. I don't know. That guy scares the shit out of me because
How did Glenn Beck get pulled off?
Not forever, but he said on the radio that Donald Trump should be assassinated.
Did
Which
he?
definitely you shouldn't be allowed to say on the radio.
No, that's pretty unacceptable.
Yeah, that's fucking horrible. We're joking around, and we don't really think he should be assassinated, but we do.
Frankly, I never thought that Glenn Beck would have that opinion.
Glenn Beck is very anti-Trump.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Wow.
There's a great video where he says, what would it be like to look like Donald Trump? And he crushes up a bunch of Cheetos, and he puts Vaseline all over his face and, like, sort of bobs for apples within the Cheetos and gets it all.
Oh, Glenn
Vic
Beck.
Berger edited it up. Love Vic Berger. If anybody's listening that hasn't seen his content, well, boy, you got to consume that content. Vic Berger
Vic
at
Berger.
Vic Berger on Twitter. He's the best.
Well, Nikki, this went in a lot of directions.
A lot
that I
of
didn't expect it
directions,
to
yeah.
go in, and I'm ecstatic. I'm very happy with it.
I had fun, and
Thank you for doing it, man. What did you before we go? I want to ask you, like, have anything to plug? Twitter, Instagram, shows.
So my Twitter is at Piss Mistress.
Piss Mistress. Is it
PISS?
underscore?
No.
Mistress.
PISSMISTRESS.
Fuck yeah.
And
It's a great Twitter. Check it out.
What about shows? I'm doing a sketch show at I.O. right now called The Program.
Okay.
It's written by a computer. Jamie Brew, he works for Clickhole. He invented this program that's kind of like predictive text, and it allows you to choose words from a database. So it sounds like a robot wrote this play. It's very thematically similar to our conversation.
Okay.
I don't know if anybody's listening to this that could see it, but if you're in Chicago, come out to I.O. on Fridays. We're going for 4
Is it
more
every
weeks.
Friday?
Yeah, for 4 more weeks. So
Awesome.
it's for a little while. And then what else? Comedy Expo at the end of July.
Oh yeah, the comedy exposition. I'm in that as well. Pretty
Gonna be
pumped for
great.
it.
Yeah, me and Charlie are gonna do it. Have fun, and we're the only 2 people in it, so it's gonna be great.
Yeah, it's just me and Nick. No, but Google that. I guess I'll provide a link in the show notes for that too. But just Google Chicago Comedy Exposition. It's a fun fest taking place in Chicago. If you live in Chicago, if you don't, still Google it. Check it
I
out.
bet you
Read about it.
everybody listening who's in Chicago will know about it, but
Probably. I can't
still
imagine.
go.
anyone-
There will be a lot of cool shows. We're doing Super Talent Show at the Apollo Theater.
Ooh, that's fucking dope.
I think it is too, but I didn't even know there was an Apollo Theater.
No,
in
I have
Chicago.
no
It's
idea.
on
Oh wait,
Lincoln.
I've been in the basement theater of the Apollo.
Is it cool?
Yeah, it's pretty small.
I bet you were in there, but maybe we're in the
Maybe.
big.
Who knows?
What I'm hoping is that they take a big, huge cane and pull us off stage.
Fuck
like-
yeah, or get the Sandman to dance you off.
Yeah. Oh fuck.
Oh man.
That would be my hope. So yeah.
Anything else?
Those are my things coming up in my life. they're plugs, but they're also just reminders, so I don't forget to go to them.
Fuck yeah, dude. Just listen to this podcast and you'll remember the dates of your own shows.
Yeah, exactly.
And you can find me on Twitter at Charlie Rohr, ROHRER, and my show note dates and all that shit. HearMeRoar.tumblr.com, ROHRER, and Hear Me Roar as well. Well, Nikki, thank you so much for being a guest on my podcast and taking it into weird places. This is exactly what I wanted out of a podcast.
Awesome. Thank you, Charlie. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. Love you, bud.